I want you to picture a scenario. And I'm willing to bet my next paycheck that every single person listening to this right now has been in this exact spot.
Okay, I'm with you.
You are standing in the middle of a grocery store aisle. The fluorescent lights are buzzing overhead. It's that specific, that soul-sucking hum.
Oh, I know that.
You're maybe in the cereal aisle, or maybe you've ventured into the health food section with, like, the best of intentions.
Modern arena of confusion. That's what it is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you were just staring at the shelves. You were completely paralyzed. You pick up one box, and it screams at you in bright red letters, high protein, build muscle, crush your workout.
Right.
You think, okay, I want to be strong. That sounds good. But then you pick up the box right next to it. It says low carb, keto friendly, fat burning.
And then there's the one next to that says heart healthy, gluten-free, paleo, ancient grains, superfood. It's just a wall of noise.
It's a wall of noise.
Yeah.
And suddenly your brain starts firing off all these headlines you scrolled past on your phone that morning while you were drinking your coffee. One article said eggs are a miracle food that will save your brain.
And the next article, literally 2 swipes down, said eggs are going to clog your arteries and give you a heart attack.
Exactly. One influencer says butter is a health food. It's great for you. The next says saturated fat is the devil.
It is exhausting. And it leads to a very specific, and I think a very common psychological state. Learned helplessness. You just feel like nutrition is impossible to understand.
We tend to just throw our hands up and think, well, the scientists just don't know yet. It's all just opinion. It's a pendulum. One day coffee kills you. The next day it saves you. I'll just eat whatever I want. But, and this is the question that kept me up last night while I was prepping for this. What if the confusion isn't an accident?
That is the terrifying question.
What if we aren't just confused because biology is hard, which, it is, but because we are confused by design? What if the operating system behind nutrition science keeps crashing because it was programmed to crash?
That is the core premise of the material we are unpacking today. And I'm glad you used that operating system analogy because we aren't just looking at a diet book today. We are looking at a system manual. The book is called The Future of Nutrition, and it's written by T. Colin Campbell.
Now, for those who track the health and wellness space, that name, T. Colin Campbell, is huge. He's not just a guy with a blog.
No, not at all. He is a heavyweight. In the world of nutrition science, Campbell is a legend. He is the co-author of the China Study, which many, many researchers consider the most comprehensive study of nutrition ever conducted.
It's massive.
We are talking about a man who has been in this field for over 60 years. He has published hundreds of peer-reviewed papers. But what makes this specific deep dive so fascinating isn't just his credentials, it's his story.
Yeah, let's talk about that because I think when our listeners hear the future of nutrition and plant-based, they immediately profile the author.
They do.
They expect a lifelong hippie, maybe someone who grew up in a commune wearing hemp sandals, someone who hates farming and thinks cows are evil.
You would expect that, wouldn't you? Someone with a sort of ideological axe to grind from the get-go.
Exactly. But that is not Campbell's story at all.
Not even close. T. Colin Campbell is as establishment as they come. He was born and raised on a dairy farm in rural Virginia during the Depression.
On dairy farm.
He didn't just live near cows, he lived off cows. He spent his childhood milking them from dawn until dusk. He talks about the physical sensation of it, the connection to the animal, the pride in the milk.
So he wasn't just a consumer, he was a producer. He was part of the system.
He was a true believer. He drank raw milk, he ate meat and potatoes, and when he went to college at Penn State and then to Cornell for his PhD, his goal wasn't to save the animals. His goal was to figure out how to produce animal protein more efficiently so that we could feed the world more meat and milk.
So his starting point, his entire career, was based on the premise: meat is good, milk is nature's perfect food, let's make more of it.
Exactly. He believed that protein, specifically animal protein, was the master nutrient. And he spent the first part of his career trying to prove that.
That is such a crucial piece of context for this deep dive, because it means he isn't a bias-driven vegan trying to twist data to fit a worldview.
Not at all.
He was a guy on the inside. He essentially had to destroy his own worldview, jeopardize his own career, and alienate his own colleagues to follow the science where it actually led.
That's the irony that drives this entire narrative. The man who grew up thinking milk was liquid gold is now the one sounding the alarm that it might be the problem. And The Future of Nutrition isn't just a diet book. In fact, if you go in expecting a recipe book or a 10-day beach body plan, you're going to be disappointed.
Oh, yeah.
This is a critique of the scientific establishment. It's a history book. It's a philosophy book.
Right. We aren't just going to tell you to eat your broccoli today. We are going to uncover a systemic failure in how we understand science itself.
We're going to dismantle the definition of healthy food and rebuild it from the ground up. And to do that, we're going to explore 3 massive pillars that Campbell lays out in the text.
Okay, lay them out for us. What are the 3 pillars?
First, we have to talk about the cult of animal protein. And he uses that word cult very deliberately. It's not a metaphor.
It sounds intense, but when we get into the stories, I think people will see why he goes there. It's a strong word for a reason.
Second, we're going to look at the biological mechanism of cancer. We're going to discuss how Campbell discovered a literal light switch for cancer growth in the lab. And I want to warn you, this part gets technical. We are going to talk about specific studies, percentages, and cellular mechanisms. But it changes everything you think you know about genetics.
I'm ready. And the 3rd pillar.
The 3rd pillar is a war in philosophy. The war between reductionism and holism.
Holism with a W.
Holism with a W. And it explains why a pill will never, ever work the same way a plant does, and why our obsession with nutrients, like popping a vitamin C tablet, is actually making us sick.
Okay, let's unpack this. I want to start with this idea of the cult, because that feels like such a loaded term. We usually reserve cult for, fringe groups, people in robes on a compound waiting for a spaceship. But Campbell says we are all unwitting members of the cult of animal protein. What does he mean by that?
He introduces this concept he calls the driver nutrient. He argues that animal protein isn't just one nutrient among many on our plate, like, vitamin C or magnesium or fiber. It is the status symbol that dictates everything else.
I get that. Think about how we order food at a restaurant.
Exactly.
The waiter comes up, you order the steak or the chicken or the salmon. The first decision is always the meat. The vegetables are just sides. They're decoration.
They're an afterthought. The animal protein drives the meal. If you don't have it, you feel like you haven't eaten a real meal. And historically, this makes sense. In the early 20th century, meat was linked to wealth. It was linked to strength. If you could afford meat, you weren't starving. You were doing well. It became a cultural marker of success.
All right, the meat and potatoes, man. It's masculine, it's powerful, it's American.
Precisely. But Campbell points out that this bias was baked into the hard science from the very beginning, specifically with how we defined protein quality.
Okay, what does that mean?
In the early 1900s, scientists established something called biological value. It was a way of measuring how good a protein source was. And the yardstick they used was, well, it was inherently biased.
Biased how? Did they just pick meat because they liked it?
It was a little more subtle than that. They defined high-quality protein as protein that most efficiently supported rapid growth, specifically rapid physical growth in young animals.
Okay.
And since animal protein has an amino acid profile very similar to our own, it promotes very fast growth. Plant protein, on the other hand, promotes growth more slowly. So for 100 years, we've been calling animal protein high quality and plant protein low quality.
But wait, I have to play devil's advocate here immediately. Fast growth sounds good. If I have a kid, I want him to grow. If I'm going to the gym, I want my muscles to grow. Why wouldn't I want the high-quality stuff?
And that is exactly why the bias stuck, because intuitively growth equals health. But here's the key insight we're going to get to in the cancer segment. Fast growth is great if you're a bodybuilder or a cow trying to reach slaughter weight quickly. But for a human trying to live to 90 without chronic disease, fast growth might actually be the enemy.
So what do you mean?
What is cancer? Cancer is fast growth. It's uncontrolled, rapid cell replication. Heart disease involves the growth of plaque in your arteries. Campbell argues that by prioritizing explosive growth, we effectively prioritize the conditions that allow these diseases to thrive. But because of that early definition in the 1900s, we put animal protein on a pedestal. We just assumed faster is better.
Okay, so that's the history. But Campbell shares a story in the book that really, really blew my mind. It demonstrates just how deep this bias runs, even among top scientists. Tell us about the interaction he had with Vernon Young.
This is a pivotal scene in the book. It's the late 1980s. Campbell is at a major conference, the World Congress of Nutrition. He's presenting his early findings. He's showing hard data, charts and graphs, linking animal protein to higher disease rates. This is rigorous peer-reviewed science.
And the audience is full of scientists.
Yeah.
So you'd expect a rational debate, right? You'd expect them to say, check your variables. What about the p-value? That's how science is supposed to work.
You would expect that. But instead, a man named Vernon Young stands up. Now, context is key here. Vernon Young wasn't just some heckler in the back row. He was a professor of food science at MIT, a giant in the field. He was a former president of the American Institute of Nutrition.
A heavy hitter.
A very heavy hitter. And he stands up, visibly agitated, and he practically shouts at Campbell, "Colin, you're talking about good food? Please don't take it away from us."
Please don't take it away from us.
Yes, those were his words.
That doesn't sound like science. That sounds like fear. It sounds like a child being told they can't have dessert.
Right.
Or someone defending their religion.
It was a purely emotional plea. And that's why Campbell uses the word cult. When you challenge a scientific theory, people argue data. When you challenge a religious belief or a cultural identity, people get defensive and emotional. Vernon Young wasn't looking at the charts. He was visualizing his steak dinner. He was fearing the loss of his culture. Even scientists are addicted to the narrative of meat.
This is what Campbell calls innocent obliviousness.
Right. It's a great term for it.
Most people aren't malicious. Your doctor isn't trying to hurt you when they tell you to eat lean meat. They are just trapped in this groupthink where meat equals health. They've never seen the data that says otherwise because the entire system filters it out.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And the consequences of this cult mentality are massive. It's not just about arguments at conferences. Campbell details how this obsession with protein influenced public policy in a way that hurts millions and millions of people.
You're talking about the Food and Nutrition Board report, the one from 2002?
Yes. The F&B, they set the dietary guidelines for the whole country. In 2002, they set the upper safe limit for protein at 35% of total calories.
35%. Can you contextualize that for us? Is that a lot?
It is astronomically high. To hit 35% protein, you practically have to be a carnivore. You would have to replace almost all your fruits, your vegetables, your grains with meat and dairy. A standard healthy diet, even a meat-eating one, is usually around 12 to 15% protein.
Wow.
Even hardcore bodybuilders rarely need more than that. But the F&B said 35% was safe.
Why? Why on earth would they set the bar so high if the science didn't support it? It seems totally irresponsible.
Well, Campbell suggests we follow the money. He points out that the chair of that specific committee had direct ties to the dairy industry and sat on the board of Nestlé.
Nestle, the biggest food company in the world, of course.
Right. But here is why it matters for you, for the person listening right now. It's not just about a number in a dusty government report. That 35% safe limit is used to determine what gets served in school lunches.
Oh, no.
It affects the WIC program for women and infants. It affects hospital food.
So if the government says 35% is safe, then the school cafeteria feels completely justified in serving pepperoni pizza and chocolate milk every single day. They can just say, hey, we're just hitting the protein targets.
Exactly. It legitimizes the high meat status quo. It gives a rubber stamp to the industry to keep pumping animal products into our institutions. It makes the unhealthy choice the official choice.
That is just infuriating. But it leads us perfectly into the second pillar. Because Campbell didn't just decide meat was bad because of politics or corruption. He saw something in the lab biological proof that terrified him. We need to talk about the rat studies and the cancer connection. This is the part of the book that feels like a medical mystery.
It really is. And this goes back to the early days of his career. Campbell was in the Philippines in the ones, and his job was to help feed malnourished children. He was trying to get more protein to them. He was a good soldier for the protein cult.
He was doing the Lord's work, basically, trying to solve world hunger.
Right. But while he was there, he stumbled onto this grim mystery. There was a surprisingly high rate of liver cancer in children. Now, liver cancer is usually an adult disease, something you get after decades of alcoholism or hepatitis, but these were kids.
And he figured out the cause was environmental, right? It wasn't genetic.
Yes. It was linked to something called aflatoxin. Aflatoxin is a super potent carcinogen produced by a mold that grows on peanuts and corn in humid climates. The kids were eating peanut butter that was contaminated with this mold.
So the kids were eating moldy peanut butter. That's just tragic.
But here is the twist that changed Campbell's life. He looked at the data to see which kids were getting the cancer. Logically, you would think it would be the poorest kids, the ones with the worst immune systems, the ones eating the cheapest, lowest quality food.
Right. Malnutrition usually makes you more vulnerable to disease. If you're starving, your body can't fight back. That's what I would assume.
But it was the opposite. It was the kids from the wealthiest families who were getting the liver cancer, the families who were eating the best diet.
The wealthy kids?
Yeah.
But they have the most protein. They have the best doctors. That makes no sense.
Exactly. They were eating the most animal protein. The wealthy families could afford to buy Western-style diets, more meat, more dairy. And Campbell saw a research paper from India that had been done on rats that mirrored this strange observation. So he decided to test it in his own lab. He needed to know if the protein was actually helping the cancer.
And this is the experiment that changed everything. I want you to walk us through the setup in detail. Don't skip the numbers because they're really important here.
Okay. So he took 2 groups of rats. Both groups were exposed to the carcinogen, the aflatoxin. So the seed of cancer was planted in all of them. That's the constant. Every rat has the potential for cancer now.
Level playing field.
A level playing field. Then he changed their diet. Group A was fed a diet that was 20% protein, specifically casein, which is the main protein in cow's milk.
And just to clarify, 20% is roughly what a standard American diet looks like today, right? It's not some crazy high amount.
Correct. It's a standard good diet. Group B was fed a diet that was only 5% protein.
So 20% base 5%, both exposed to the same poison. What happened?
In the 20% protein group, the good diet group, the cancer grew like wildfire. Every single rat developed liver cancer or precancerous lesions.
Every single one, 100%.
100%.
And the 5% group.
0, not a single one.
Wait, hold on. I need to pause on that. You're telling me they both took the same poison, the exact same amount of carcinogen, and the only difference was the amount of milk protein they ate.
That's it. That was the only variable.
I have to push back here, though, because 5% protein is basically starvation, isn't it?
Right.
Did the rats in the 5% group just die of something else? Did they just wither away before the cancer could kill them?
That's exactly what the critics asked. They said, oh, you just starved the rats so the cancer couldn't grow. But Campbell tracked them for over 100 weeks, which is basically a full rat lifespan. The 5% rats were sleek, they were healthy, they were active, and they lived full lives. They just didn't get cancer.
That is absolutely mind-blowing.
Campbell was stunned. It went against everything he had ever been taught. He had been taught that protein builds the immune system, that it protects the liver. But here, the protein was acting like fertilizer for the cancer.
He calls this the light switch, right? This analogy really helped me understand it.
It's a brilliant analogy. Think of cancer development in 2 distinct stages: initiation and promotion.
Okay.
Initiation is when the seed is planted, maybe a chemical like a aflatoxin, a ray of UV sunshine, a random genetic mutation, or just bad luck. That's the switch being installed on the wall. You can't always control that part. We are all exposed to carcinogens every day.
Right. You can't live in a bubble.
But promotion is when the cancer actually grows. That's flipping the switch to the on position. And Campbell found that he could literally turn the cancer growth on and off just by changing the protein level.
So he could start feeding them 20% protein, and the cancer would start growing. Then he switches them to 5% protein, and the cancer stops.
It would shrink. It was reversible. That is the blockbuster finding. We tend to think of cancer as this runaway train. Once you have it, you're doomed, unless you cut it out with surgery or blast it with chemo. But Campbell showed that nutrition could control the growth. The nutrient environment determined whether the cancer thrived or withered.
That is incredibly hopeful, actually. It means we aren't helpless. It's not all just in our genes.
Exactly. It means genes load the gun, but diet pulls the trigger.
But wait, I have to play the skeptic again.
Oh.
Is all protein bad? If I eat a bowl of lentils or tofu or wheat, is that flipping the switch on? Because 5% protein is really, really low. I don't think I can live on 5% protein. I hit the gym. I need my gains. If I only eat 5% protein, I'm going to lose muscle mass.
This is the crucial distinction. And Campbell tested this because he wondered the exact same thing. He ran the same experiments using plant proteins, gluten from wheat and soy protein, and he fed the rats 20% plant protein, the same high level that caused cancer with the milk protein.
What happened?
Nothing happened. Even at the high level, the plant proteins did not promote cancer growth. The switch stayed off.
Why? What is the difference? I mean, protein is protein, isn't it? It's just amino acids. Why would the body react differently to a soy amino acid versus a milk amino acid?
This goes back to the cult definition of quality. Remember, animal proteins contain all the essential amino acids in the exact right ratios for rapid growth. They are high quality for growth. They are basically rocket fuel.
Okay.
Plant proteins are often limiting in 1 or 2 amino acids like lysine, so they are slightly incomplete in isolation.
And we've always been told that incomplete is bad.
Yeah.
You have to combine your rice and beans to get a complete protein. Don't just eat plain toast.
Right, that's the old myth. But Campbell found that this slight deficiency, this incompleteness, actually acts as a safety brake. It prevents the runaway cell replication that leads to cancer. It provides enough for maintenance, for immune function, for normal muscle repair, but not enough to fuel the tumor.
That is fascinating. So the fact that plant protein is incomplete is actually a feature, not a bug.
Yeah.
It's a biological safety mechanism.
Exactly. And to prove it, when they took the plant protein and artificially added the missing amino acids to match the profile of animal protein, turning it into rocket fuel, the cancer growth turned back on.
Wow.
So it really is about that specific high-octane fuel that animal protein provides.
Okay, so you're saying I can build muscle on plant protein, but I won't be feeding cancer.
Exactly. You get the maintenance without the mutation, you get the repair without the rampant growth.
Okay, so that's rats.
Yeah.
And critics always say, well, I'm not a rat, I'm a human. Rats don't live as long, their metabolism is different. How does this translate to us?
This is where Campbell brings in the charts. In Chapter 9 of the book, he moves from the lab to the real world. He lays out these correlation charts from human populations across different countries, and the trend lines are just staggering.
What are we looking at in these charts?
If you look at a chart of breast cancer mortality versus animal fat and protein intake, it is practically a straight line moving up. It's a linear correlation. The countries that eat the most animal products, the US, the UK, Canada, New Zealand, have the highest breast cancer rates.
And the ones that eat the least.
The countries that eat the least, places like Thailand, El Salvador, rural China, have the lowest. It's a direct relationship.
And it's not just breast cancer.
No.
Right.
Heart disease, colon cancer, uterine cancer, kidney cancer, the charts all look the same. As animal protein intake goes up, disease goes up. And here is the kicker, and the analyst in me finds this the most compelling part. There are no charts showing the opposite.
What do you mean by that?
There is no data set anywhere in the world where high animal protein intake correlates with lower rates of these diseases. The trend is remarkably consistent across decades and cultures. If meat were truly protective or even neutral, we would see a mix. We'd see some high meat countries with low cancer. We don't. We see a consistent signal that animal protein is linked to chronic disease.
So we have the lab mechanism, the light switch, and we have the real-world data, the charts. It seems so clear. Why are we still arguing about this? Why are we still obsessed with isolating specific nutrients? You know, I need my vitamin C, I need my omega-3s, I need to take my calcium supplement.
This brings us to the third pillar of the episode, the philosophy of science. Campbell talks about the war between reductionism and holism, and this is the part that explains why we are so confused.
Okay, define reductionism for us. Sounds like a good thing, right? Reducing a problem to its parts to solve it.
In physics or engineering, reductionism is great. It means taking a complex system and breaking it down into its parts to understand how it works. If your car breaks down, you look at the spark plugs, the battery, the fuel injector. You isolate the variable, you fix the part, and the car runs.
Right. You don't replace the whole car, you replace the tire. Simple.
But biology isn't a car. Campbell argues that when we apply reductionism to nutrition, we fail spectacularly. We study vitamin C in isolation instead of the orange. We study a specific gene mutation instead of the whole body. We focus on the parts and we completely ignore the whole.
We miss the forest for the trees.
We miss the forest for the bark. Nutrition is incredibly complex. When you eat an apple, there are thousands of phytochemicals interacting with each other. One nutrient might change how another is absorbed. Your metabolic rate changes nanosecond by nanosecond. You cannot isolate one variable in a living system without losing the context.
Campbell has a great quote about this regarding those randomized controlled trials, RCTs. We always hear that RCTs are the gold standard of science. If it's not an RCT, doctors say it doesn't count. But Campbell says that's a trap for nutrition.
Yes. He says trying to test a dietary lifestyle with an RCT is like trying to weigh a horse with a tape measure.
Trying to weigh a horse with a tape measure. I love that. It's so perfect.
Think about it. RCTs are designed for drugs. If you want to test a new blood pressure pill, you take two groups. One gets the pill, one gets a placebo. You change one single variable, you keep everything else the same. That works for drugs because drugs are isolated agents. But diet is a lifestyle. It involves thousands of variables. You can't double blind a steak dinner. You know what you're eating.
And you can't control what people do for 20 years. You can't lock people in a lab and force feed them for a decade to see if they get cancer. It's impossible.
Exactly. So when we demand RCTs for nutrition, we are demanding the wrong tool for the job. And this reductionist mindset leads to what Campbell calls the supplement scam.
Oh, I loved this part, the Apple Jacks analogy.
It's perfect, right? We think we can eat junk food, take a multivitamin, and be healthy. Campbell says that's like taking a box of Apple Jacks, which is basically sugar and refined flour, and spraying it with a few vitamins. Then we call it fortified and nutritious. It's a broken replacement for nature. You can't fool the body.
There was a study he mentioned that really scared me about this. It was about smokers and beta-carotene.
The carrot study, yes. This is the ultimate proof of reductionism failing. Scientists looked at population data and saw that people who ate lots of carrots and leafy greens foods high in beta-carotene had lower lung cancer rates. So, thinking reductionistically, they said, aha, beta-carotene is the magic bullet.
So they put it in pills.
You put it in a pill. They gave high-dose beta-carotene pills to heavy smokers, thinking it would protect them from lung cancer. They expected a cure.
And what happened?
The group taking the pills had higher rates of lung cancer. They had more deaths. They actually had to stop the study early because they were killing people.
Wow. So the whole carrot protects you, but the isolated nutrient makes it worse.
Exactly. In the context of the whole food, beta-carotene is part of a symphony. It works with fiber, with other antioxidants, with water. In isolation at high doses, it acts like a drug. It can cause a dangerous imbalance. It can become pro-oxidant. That is holism.
Holism with a W.
It's the symphony versus the soloist. Your body manages a symphony of interactions. If you just blast one trumpet note, one high-dose vitamin, you ruin the music.
This also applies to the superfood craze, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I'm guilty of this. I read an article and think, blueberries, I need more antioxidants, so I'll just eat a pound of blueberries.
Campbell hates that term superfood because ranking foods is a trap. It keeps us focused on specific chemicals. I need more lycopene, so I'll eat tomatoes. No, just eat the whole plant-based diet. The variety is the protection. When you obsess over superfoods, you are still playing the reductionist game. You're just playing it in the produce aisle instead of the pharmacy.
So we have the science showing animal protein feeds cancer. We have the philosophy explaining why we keep looking for magic pills instead of just eating food. But there is a darker side to this story. Why don't we know this? Why isn't this on the front page of every newspaper? Why didn't my doctor tell me this?
This is where we get into the politics. This is segment 4, institutional dysfunction and censorship.
It feels like a political thriller. Campbell isn't just a scientist here. He becomes a whistleblower.
He really is. And to understand the suppression, you have to go back to 1977. You have to understand the McGovern Report.
Senator George McGovern. He ran for president, right?
Yes. And before that, he led a Senate Committee on Nutrition. They looked at the data, and this was 1977, so the data connecting fat and meat to heart disease was already piling up. McGovern's committee drafted a report suggesting Americans should eat less meat and less dietary fat to prevent heart disease. Simple, sensible advice.
Seems reasonable. Eat less bacon, live longer. What's the problem?
The backlash was brutal. It was immediate. The meat and dairy industries went nuclear. They lobbied. They threatened. They pulled funding. And in the 1980 election, 6 senators who supported that report lost their re-election bids.
6 senators lost their job.
Directly because of industry opposition in farm states. The message was sent loud and clear to every politician in Washington: don't mess with Big Ag. Do not tell Americans to eat less meat.
And that message stuck, didn't it?
Oh, it's stuck. After that, the government guidelines changed. Notice the language. They stopped saying, eat less meat. They started using vague language like, choose meats with lower saturated fat, or eat more lean protein. They made it confusing on purpose to protect the industry while trying to appear health conscious.
But Campbell isn't a politician. He's an academic. He was at Cornell University, one of the most prestigious Ivy League schools in the world. Surely academia is safe from this stuff. Surely the university is a sanctuary for truth.
You would hope so. But he tells this story of the Cornell Chronicle censorship. And this was much more recent, just a few years ago. Campbell had developed an online course on whole food plant-based nutrition through Cornell's online extension. It was a massive success. It had the highest enrollment of any course they offered.
People were hungry for the truth.
Exactly. So the university president at the time, David Skorton, who was a vegetarian himself, by the way, was going to put out a press release praising the course. It was a good news story for the university. Look at this successful program.
What?
Silence. The story was killed. The press release never went out.
Why?
Pressure from the Division of Nutritional Sciences at Cornell. And who funds the Division of Nutritional Sciences?
I mean, yes, it's not the broccoli farmers.
Dairy, egg, and agricultural interests. The industry funding is so deep in academia that even a university president had to back down from a simple press release. Campbell says that academic freedom is an illusion when industry money is involved.
It's chilling. It really is. It means the experts we trust are often on a payroll we don't see. He also mentions the BBC and Sanofi scandal.
Yes, this happened in the UK. There was a BBC report on nutrition that was heavily influenced by Sanofi, which is a pharmaceutical giant. It just shows the perverse entanglement. Media, government, pharma, the food industry, they're all in bed together.
And the result is that we, the public, are just numb to it. We expect corruption, we shrug and say, of course, they're bought.
That numbness is dangerous. Campbell demands we wake up. He demands we look at the cost, not just in dollars, but in lives. People are dying because the truth is being suppressed.
So let's talk about the solution. Segment 5. We've dismantled the system, we've exposed the cult, we've seen the corruption. What do we actually do? If I'm listening to this and I want to opt out of the system, what is the plan?
Campbell's advice is shockingly simple. After all the complex biochemistry, all the politics, the solution fits in 12 words. Consume a variety of whole plant-based foods. Avoid consumption of animal-based foods.
That's it. That's the whole prescription.
That's it. But notice the word whole. That is doing a lot of work in that sentence.
Right. Because a potato chip is plant-based, vodka is plant-based, Oreos are technically vegan. That's not what he means.
Exactly. He is not talking about junk food veganism. He means whole foods. No refined sugars, no added oils. A potato is a health food. A potato chip is a carcinogen delivery system soaked in fat and salt. You have to eat the food as nature packaged it.
And what about the protein question? I feel like people listening are still thinking, but where do I get my protein if I don't eat meat?
Campbell says we need to stop asking that question. It's the wrong question. It's a cult question. It's a marketing question. If you eat enough calories of whole plant foods, beans, grains, vegetables, fruits, you will get enough protein. It is mathematically impossible not to, unless you are literally starving yourself.
So what's the question we should be asking instead?
Where do you get your antioxidants? Because you can only get those from plants. Where do you get your fiber? Only from plants. There is no fiber in meat. Where do you get your complex carbohydrates? Those are the things that protect us from disease. We are obsessing over the one nutrient we have too much of, which is protein, and ignoring the ones we are starving for.
He also has some pretty radical proposals for fixing the system itself, the science and the government.
He does. He calls for a healing of nutrition. First, we have to stop treating nutrition as a sub-discipline of medicine. Right now, doctors get almost no training in nutrition, maybe a few hours in 4 years of med school. That has to change. Nutrition is the foundation of health. It should be the core curriculum.
It makes sense. If food causes the disease, food should be the treatment.
Second, sever the ties. Taxpayers should fund research, not big meat or big pharma. If a study is funded by the National Dairy Council, you cannot trust the result, period. It is advertising, not science.
And third, what's the third fix?
Worship nature, not technology. Nutrition is not a technology to be engineered. We keep trying to hack our bodies with keto or paleo or supplements or protein powders, Campbell says. Stop hacking. Start relating. Establish a relationship with nature. Eat what the earth provides.
There's a powerful economic argument here, too.
Right.
We spend trillions on healthcare in this country.
Campbell corrects that. He says we spend trillions on disease care. We have a system that waits until people are broken, until they have the heart attack or the tumor, and then we spend a fortune trying to patch them up with drugs and surgery.
Right.
If we spent a fraction of that on healthy food, on subsidizing fruits and vegetables instead of corn syrup and cattle feed, we would save trillions. It's a zero-sum game. Every dollar spent on good food saves $10 on medical bills down the road.
And it's good for the planet. That's a huge piece of this as well.
It's briefly mentioned in the book, but it's crucial. What is good for the body is good for the planet. The environmental cost of animal agriculture is unsustainable. A plant-based diet is the single biggest way an individual can reduce their environmental footprint.
It's compelling. It really is. It feels like the grand unified theory of food. It solves the health crisis, the economic crisis, and the environmental crisis all at once.
And it's delicious. That's the part people forget. Once you break the addiction to salt, sugar, and fat, real food tastes amazing.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's reflect. We've been on a journey from that confusing grocery store aisle to the rat lab, through the halls of Congress and back to the dinner table. We've seen the corruption, but we've also seen the solution.
And the most hopeful takeaway for me is this. We don't need a miracle cure. We are always waiting for the cure for cancer to be announced on the news. We are waiting for a new pill from Pfizer. But Campbell is telling us that the solution to our biggest killers, heart disease, cancer, diabetes, already
This
exists.
is not in a lab.
It's in the produce aisle. It's in the garden. We have the power to turn that light switch off. We don't have to be victims of our genes.
That is incredibly empowering. But it's also a challenge to the listener, isn't it?
It is. Next time you see a label that screams high protein or double meat, ask yourself, is this science or is this the cult speaking? Are you making a choice or are you following a script that was written by an industry that doesn't care if you live or die?
Peace if possible, truth at all costs. That's Campbell's motto.
The truth is uncomfortable. It challenges our traditions. It challenges what our parents taught us. It challenges what we serve at Thanksgiving. But as Campbell showed, the truth might just save your life.
Thanks for diving deep with us today. Go eat an apple, the whole apple.
Peel and all.
See you next time.